Let me tell you something most people never hear in time. Motivation lights the fire. Discipline keeps it burning. When I was a kid, I met a man in my neighborhood who used to run every single morning at 5 a.m. Rain, heat, winter, he never missed a day. One morning I asked him, "Why do you do this? What keeps you going?" He smiled and said, "Son, if I wait for motivation, I will lose myself. But if I stay disciplined, I will find myself every day." I didn't understand those words then, but today I see so many people struggling, stuck, lost, not because they are weak, not because they don't have dreams, but because they keep waiting for the right feeling, the right moment, the right spark. Tell me honestly, how many times have you promised yourself you'll start tomorrow? How many times have you waited for that push, that mood, that energy to begin? Look around you, life is moving fast. People are rising, people are falling, all based on one simple truth. Not who is motivated, but who is disciplined. And that is why today, I want to share 7 powerful key points with you. Something that can change the path of your life. Something that will show you why discipline will save your life more than motivation ever will. Let's begin. The first key point is that motivation fades, but discipline stays. And this truth becomes clearer the more you look at your own life. Think about the moments when you felt wildly inspired. After watching a powerful video, hearing a great speech, or imagining a future version of yourself that feels almost unreal. In those moments, everything seems possible. Your mind races, your heart beats faster, and you feel like you can take on the world. But then life steps in. A bad day, a tired morning, a distracting environment, and suddenly that electric feeling is gone. The energy you depended on disappears, and you're left with nothing but choices. This is where most people fall, not because they lack dreams, but because they rely on emotion instead of discipline. Emotion is temporary, discipline is a decision, motivation is a rush, a spark that lights you up but burns out just as fast. Discipline, on the other hand, is built slowly, quietly, and consistently. It doesn't arrive with a dramatic feeling. It doesn't knock on your door with excitement or promise you instant success. Instead, it whispers every single day. Do it anyway. People misunderstand discipline because they expect it to feel good. But discipline isn't about feeling good. It's about doing what is good for you, even when you're tired, bored, frustrated, or unsure. That is why disciplined people don't live life on emotional roller coasters. They don't need fireworks to begin their day. They work because they said they would. They follow through because their commitment matters more than their mood. When you depend on motivation, your life becomes unpredictable. One day you're productive, the next day you don't even want to get out of bed. One week you're locked in, the next week you disappear from your goals completely. You end up building and destroying your progress over and over again. But when discipline becomes your foundation, stability enters your life. You no longer need perfect days. You no longer wait for the right moment. You show up because showing up is who you are becoming. And when you keep showing up, a powerful thing happens. Progress no longer depends on chance. It becomes guaranteed. People who succeed at the highest levels are not the most motivated. They are the most disciplined. They wake up early not because they feel like it, but because they trained themselves to do what matters. They push through fear, laziness, and discomfort because they understand a simple truth. Feelings are unreliable, but repeated actions reshape your destiny. And discipline doesn't demand perfection. It demands consistency. It asks you to keep moving, Even if some days you move slowly, even if some days you struggle, even if some days you fail, discipline says, get up again. And that repeated rise day after day builds a force inside you that motivation can never match. The deeper you understand this, the more you will see that relying on motivation is actually a trap. It convinces you to chase excitement instead of building habits. It makes you believe you're making progress just because you feel inspired. But inspiration without action is just imagination. Discipline takes that imagination and turns it into something real. It turns your goals into routines, your routines into progress, and your progress into results. And once you experience the power of results that came from discipline rather than emotion, you start to trust yourself on a whole new level. In the end, motivation might help you start, but it will never carry you to the finish line. That strength comes only from discipline, from the firm, steady commitment to do the work, whether you feel motivated or not. Motivation is the spark, discipline is the engine. Motivation may come and go, but discipline builds a version of you who moves forward no matter what stands in the way. The second key point is that discipline reshapes your identity, and this is one of the deepest truths people often overlook. Most people think identity is something fixed, something you're born with, or something that forms naturally over time. But identity is shaped by choices, not chance. Every action you take becomes a vote for the kind of person you believe you are. When you choose discipline, even in small ways, you begin to rewrite the story you tell yourself about who you are. You stop seeing yourself as someone who struggles, and you start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. This shift doesn't happen instantly. It happens silently, in the moments when no one is watching, in the decisions that seem too small to matter. But those are the exact moments that build your inner strength. Every disciplined action strengthens your internal belief system. When you say you'll wake up early and actually do it, you're not just proving it to the world, you're proving it to yourself. When you decide to focus instead of scroll, to learn instead of escape, to push instead of quit, you begin to recognize a different version of yourself emerging. This version of you is sharper, more focused, more grounded. It's not driven by moods or impulses. It's driven by intention. And intention shapes identity far more powerfully than momentary inspiration. Over time, you begin to trust your own word. You begin to realize your mind listens to everything you do. Every action becomes evidence of who you're becoming. Identity grows in the small battles of daily life. It's formed when you choose effort over excuses, progress over comfort, growth over stagnation. You don't need a dramatic transformation to reshape your identity. You need consistent effort. People don't become disciplined by accident. They become disciplined by choosing patterns that support the person they want to be. And slowly, these patterns start to feel natural. What once felt difficult becomes familiar. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes part of your normal life. This is the quiet magic of discipline. It transforms your identity from the inside out. Your identity is not shaped by what you wish you could do. It's shaped by what you repeatedly do. Someone who shows up every day, even when they're tired, starts to feel strong. Someone who keeps their promises to themselves starts to feel reliable. Someone who pushes through discomfort starts to feel powerful. The world may not see this transformation immediately, but you feel it. And once you feel it, you carry yourself differently. You think differently. You behave differently. You respond to challenges differently. The inner shift becomes impossible to ignore. You begin to feel aligned with the person you want to become instead of feeling distant from your own potential. Discipline also reshapes identity by creating internal stability. When you rely on motivation, you build your identity on feelings, and feelings are unpredictable. But when you rely on discipline, you build your identity on actions, and actions are controllable. This stability gives you a sense of ownership over your life. You realize you are not a passenger. You are the driver. You are not waiting for inspiration. You are creating direction. This mindset makes you stronger than any moment of motivation ever could. Because now, your identity isn't based on how inspired you feel. It's based on how consistently you show up. With each disciplined choice, you carve out a new standard for yourself. You begin expecting more from yourself because you know you're capable of more. You stop settling for the old version of you because the new version is proving itself day after day. The old narrative begins to fade. I'm inconsistent. I'm not committed. I always fail. And a new narrative takes its place. I show up. I follow through. I become who I decide to be. This is the power of discipline. It doesn't just change your actions. It changes the person you see in the mirror. It changes your inner voice. It changes your identity at its core. The third key point is that discipline protects you from your worst self. And this is something most people never admit out loud. Deep inside every one of us, there is a version of ourselves we try to hide. The version that chooses comfort over growth, excuses over effort, distractions over progress. This version is always waiting for a moment of weakness. It waits for the days when you're tired, overwhelmed, disappointed, or emotionally drained. That inner voice whispers, skip it today, or you can do it tomorrow, or it doesn't matter. And if you're not careful, that quiet whisper becomes a loud habit. Discipline is the shield that stands between you and that destructive side of you. It keeps you from becoming someone you won't respect later. That weaker version of you loves short-term comfort. It wants to avoid anything that feels hard. It wants the easy road, the quick escape, the soft option. It celebrates temporary relief, even if it costs you long-term peace. Without discipline, this version of you takes control, not in dramatic ways, but in small daily choices, hitting snooze, delaying goals, breaking promises, quitting early. These small moments might feel harmless, but they build a life that is shaped by avoidance. Discipline steps in and disrupts that pattern. It says, I know you don't feel like it, but we're doing it anyway. Discipline doesn't negotiate with weakness. It doesn't ask for permission from emotions. It simply acts. The strongest people are not the ones who never feel weak. They are the ones who refuse to let weakness lead. Discipline is the force that helps you override your impulses. It is the system you build to keep yourself aligned with your values, not your moods. Think about how many times people ruin their progress not because they aren't capable, but because they let temporary feelings make long-term decisions. A single moment of laziness can cost you opportunities. A single moment of emotion can damage relationships. A single moment of fear can stop you from taking steps that would have changed your future. Discipline protects you from those emotional decisions by giving you structure. Your worst self often appears when life gets stressful. When you're tired or hurt, the mind tries to pull you toward what is easy instead of what is right. That's when discipline becomes even more valuable. It becomes a voice that guides you back to your path. It becomes a reminder that your actions matter even when your emotions feel heavy. Discipline is like a contract you create with yourself. A contract that says you will not let temporary emotions destroy long term goals. And every time you honor that contract, you weaken the influence of your worst self and strengthen the best version of you. Over time, discipline rewires the way you respond to challenges. Instead of running from difficulty, you begin to face it. Instead of giving in to fear, you learn to manage it. Instead of letting emotions control your decisions, you learn to control your reactions. You become more grounded, more stable, and more resilient. Your worst self loses power because you stop feeding it with excuses. That version of you that once controlled your life becomes just a shadow, something you no longer obey. And this transformation doesn't happen in loud moments. It happens quietly in your daily practice of choosing responsibility over impulse. What makes discipline so powerful is that it protects your future, not just your present. Every time you act with discipline, you are strengthening the version of yourself that will lead your life years from now. You are creating a foundation that cannot be shaken by emotions or circumstances. You're building a future driven by intention instead of fear, by growth instead of comfort. Discipline doesn't just keep you on track, it keeps you from becoming someone you regret. It creates a gap between who you are and your worst impulses, and that gap becomes the space where your real strength grows. The fourth key point is that discipline turns pain into power, and this is one of the most misunderstood truths about growth. People often believe pain is a sign to stop, a sign that something is wrong, a sign that life is working against them. But in reality, pain is often the first sign of transformation. It shows up when you challenge old habits, when you push past limits, when you stretch yourself into areas that feel uncomfortable. Discipline doesn't remove pain. It teaches you how to use it. It teaches you how to convert discomfort into strength, frustration into focus, and struggle into resilience. Without discipline, pain stays as pain. With discipline, pain becomes progress. The pain you feel when you begin a new routine or break an unhealthy habit isn't punishment. It's a signal that you're doing something different, something uncommon, something your old self never dared to do. People who avoid pain stay stuck in the same loops, repeating the same choices, feeling the same disappointments over and over again. But people who embrace discipline start to see pain differently. They understand that the very discomfort they want to avoid is the exact discomfort that grows them. They begin to expect it, not fear it. They learn to breathe through it, not run from it. This shift in perspective is powerful because once you stop resisting pain, you stop resisting growth. Every area of life demands some form of disciplined discomfort. If you want a stronger body, you must face physical strain. If you want a sharper mind, you must endure the hard work of learning. If you want better habits, you must push through the awkward stage of change. These moments don't feel good, they rarely feel exciting, but they build something inside you that comfort never could. They build emotional muscle. They build mental endurance. They build inner strength. The pain becomes a teacher, showing you what you're capable of, showing you how far you can go, showing you that you're stronger than your excuses. Most people quit not because they are weak, but because they expect growth to feel comfortable. They believe success should come naturally if they're meant for it. But nothing meaningful comes without the willingness to endure difficulty. When you use discipline to push through that difficulty, you discover a level of power you didn't know you had. You learn that you are not fragile. You learn that you can handle more than you think. You learn that temporary discomfort is a price worth paying for long-term strength. And once you've tasted that strength, even just once, it changes the way you approach every challenge after that. Pain becomes easier to handle when you understand its purpose. Discipline gives pain direction. Without discipline, pain feels pointless. With discipline, pain feels like progress. Instead of seeing it as something that slows you down, you begin to see it as something that propels you forward. Every time you push through discomfort, you build emotional evidence that you can survive difficult moments. This evidence becomes confidence. This confidence becomes courage. And this courage becomes the fuel that keeps you going when others stop. What discipline really does is teach you how to turn suffering into strength. It transforms your relationship with your own limits. It takes the hard moments of life and uses them to sharpen you instead of break you. When you consistently choose discipline, the pain that once scared you becomes the pain that strengthens you. You stop avoiding challenges and start meeting them head on. You stop doubting yourself and start trusting your resilience. You stop shrinking from difficulty and start walking through it with purpose. And over time, the very pain you once feared becomes the foundation of the power you carry within you. The fifth key point is that discipline builds freedom, and this idea feels strange to people at first because they assume discipline restricts life. They hear the word discipline and picture rigid schedules, strict routines, and a life without fun or flexibility. But that is a misunderstanding rooted in short-term thinking. True discipline isn't a prison, it's a pathway. It frees you from the chains. You can't see the chains of procrastination, the chains of impulsive decisions, the chains of constantly reacting to life instead of leading it. Freedom is not doing whatever you feel like. Freedom is having control over your choices, your time, and your future. And that kind of freedom can only be built through discipline. Most people live in a cycle where their impulses own them. Their phone owns them. Their mood owns them. Their cravings, distractions, and emotions dictate their decisions. They think they are choosing freely, but they're actually being controlled by the easiest option in every moment. Discipline breaks that cycle. It gives you the ability to pause, to think, to choose from strength rather than impulse. When you build discipline, your days stop being dictated by your moods. Instead, they're guided by your goals. You gain freedom from the invisible forces that push you around. You finally get to live life on your terms, not on the terms of your emotions. Freedom requires structure the same way a river requires banks. Without boundaries, water spills everywhere and loses its power. With boundaries, it becomes focused, controlled, and capable of tremendous force. Your life works the same way. Discipline gives you boundaries that don't limit you. They sharpen you. They create a stable path for your energy, your effort, and your focus. And once you have that stable path, you can move faster toward the life you want. You no longer waste time restarting goals, rebuilding habits, or recovering from poor choices. Discipline prevents chaos, and by preventing chaos, it gives you space to grow. People who lack discipline often feel trapped, not because life is unfair, but because they keep getting in their own way. They feel stuck financially because they can't control spending or stay consistent with work. They feel stuck physically because they start and stop healthy habits. They feel stuck mentally because they jump from one thing to another without committing to anything long enough to see results. Discipline unlocks these areas. When you commit to a routine, even a small one, you start generating momentum. That momentum builds stability, and that stability creates a sense of freedom. Freedom from worrying about whether you'll follow through. freedom from guilt, freedom from the weight of unfinished intentions. The ironic truth is that the people who avoid discipline in the name of freedom are usually the ones who end up feeling the most trapped by life. They feel overwhelmed, disorganized, and constantly behind. They feel controlled by deadlines, responsibilities, and chaos. Meanwhile, the people who embrace discipline create enough order in their lives to enjoy real freedom. They can relax without guilt. They can take breaks without falling apart. They can plan their future with confidence because they know their habits will support their goals. Their freedom isn't accidental, it's earned. Ultimately, discipline is what protects your future from your present impulses. It gives you the power to say yes to what matters and no to what steals your time, energy, and potential. When you build discipline, you are not limiting your life, you are expanding it. You are creating a version of yourself that is strong enough, focused enough, and consistent enough to live with purpose. And once you experience that kind of freedom, you realize it was never discipline that was restricting you. It was the lack of discipline that kept you stuck. The sixth key point is that discipline makes you trust yourself. And this is one of the most powerful transformations a person can experience. Most people don't realize how deeply their self-trust has been damaged by their own broken promises. Every time you say you'll start tomorrow but don't, a small part of you stops believing your own words. Every time you say you'll change but fall back into old habits, your mind learns not to take you seriously. This isn't about guilt, it's about internal wiring. Your brain pays attention to your actions far more than your intentions. Discipline slowly rebuilds that lost trust. When you follow through on your commitments, even quietly, something inside you begins to shift. You start to feel reliable again. You start to feel proud of yourself again. You start to believe that your own word actually means something. Self-trust isn't built through grand promises. It's built through small, consistent actions. When you show up even when you don't feel like it, you send a powerful message to your subconscious. I can count on myself. This message grows stronger each time you follow through. And the more it grows, the more confident you become. Confidence doesn't come from motivation. It doesn't come from compliments. It doesn't come from achievements alone. Real, unshakable confidence comes from knowing deep down that you will do what you said you would do. Discipline is what builds that guarantee. It gives you the power to walk into challenges with a calm certainty, not because the challenge is easy, but because you know you won't quit on yourself. Many people chase motivation hoping it will make them feel confident, but motivation only creates temporary excitement. It doesn't create deep belief. Deep belief is formed by evidence, and evidence is created by actions. When you act with discipline day after day, you start to collect emotional evidence that you are capable, committed, and trustworthy. This evidence becomes a reservoir of strength you can draw from when life gets hard. You no longer feel like someone who tries. You feel like someone who follows through, and this internal certainty changes everything. Your decisions, your behavior, your mindset, your expectations. You stop doubting whether you can succeed and start focusing on how you will succeed. One of the biggest reasons people struggle is because they do not trust themselves to stick to anything long enough to see results. This lack of self-trust creates fear. Fear of starting, fear of failing, fear of committing, fear of disappointing themselves again. Discipline dissolves that fear slowly but powerfully. Each day you show up, you reduce the gap between the person you want to be and the person you are. Each day you keep going, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. You build a new layer of self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of inner peace. When you respect yourself, you stop searching for validation. You stop comparing. You stop feeling insecure about every small setback. You become anchored in your own strength. As your discipline grows, your relationship with yourself becomes healthier and more stable. You begin to trust your judgment more. You begin to rely on your habits instead of your moods. You begin to make commitments without the quiet fear that you won't follow through. This internal stability is rare in a world where most people feel emotionally scattered and directionless. Discipline gives you something solid to stand on, a relationship with yourself that is rooted in consistency and honesty. When you can trust yourself, you don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need a wave of motivation. You don't need other people to push you. You become your own source of momentum. Eventually, the discipline you build shapes a version of you that stands tall, not because life is easy, but because you have learned to rely on your own consistency. You know you'll show up. You know you'll keep going. You know you'll finish what you start. And that kind of self-trust is one of the greatest powers a human being can possess. It changes the way you move through the world. It changes the way you pursue your goals. It changes the way you see yourself. Discipline becomes not just something you practice, but something you embody. It becomes the anchor that holds you steady no matter what storms come your way. The seventh key point is that discipline creates long-term success, the kind of success that doesn't collapse when life gets difficult or when motivation disappears. People often think success comes from big breakthroughs, dramatic opportunities, or sudden moments of clarity. But when you study anyone who has built something lasting, whether it's a career, a business, a strong body, or a meaningful life, you discover their real strength wasn't talent or luck. It was discipline, the daily commitment, the small steps, the repeated effort. Long-term success isn't created in one big moment. It's built in countless quiet moments where you choose consistency over comfort and long-term vision over short-term pleasure. Success requires patience, and discipline is the engine that keeps you moving even when results are invisible. In the beginning, the work feels heavy. You put in effort without seeing much change. You push hard but feel like you're barely moving. This is where most people give up, not because the goal is impossible, but because they expect instant progress. Discipline protects you from that impatience. It gives you the strength to keep going long enough for progress to show up. And the moment progress appears, even just a little, you realize the effort was building something inside you the whole time. Growth always starts in the dark before it becomes visible. Long-term success also demands stability, and discipline gives you that stability. When you operate purely on emotion, your actions rise and fall with your mood. One day you're working hard, the next day you disappear. One week you're consistent, the next week you're overwhelmed. But discipline creates a steady rhythm in your life, a rhythm that success can depend on, a mindset that doesn't crack at the first sign of difficulty, a routine that doesn't collapse when challenges show up. Success cannot root itself in inconsistency. It needs a stable foundation, and discipline is exactly that foundation. Another reason discipline leads to long-term success is because it teaches you to do the work. Even when you're not being rewarded, many people only put in effort when they feel excited or when someone is watching or when results show quickly. But long-term goals require you to work during the quiet seasons. When no one is noticing, when nothing seems to be changing, when you're questioning yourself. Discipline helps you push through these silent seasons by reminding you that growth is happening even when you can't see it. It keeps you steady when your mind wants to quit. It turns the long journey from something exhausting into something meaningful. Discipline also strengthens your ability to make long-term decisions. One of the biggest reasons people fail is because they trade what they want most for what they want now. They choose comfort instead of commitment. They choose ease instead of effort. They choose distraction instead of direction. Discipline flips that pattern. It trains you to prioritize your future over your impulses. It teaches you to delay gratification, not as a punishment, but as a path to something better. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you invest in a future that's stronger, clearer, and more successful than the one created by temporary desires. And with time, discipline turns into momentum. Momentum that becomes very hard to stop. Once you've built strong habits, clear routines, and a stable mindset, success starts to grow at a faster rate. Opportunities become easier to find. Skills improve naturally. Confidence rises. Results compound. What once felt impossible becomes normal. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once required discipline becomes part of your identity. Long-term success doesn't come from chasing motivation or waiting for perfect timing. It comes from building a lifestyle where discipline guides your choices, protects your progress, and fuels your growth every single day. In the end, everything circles back to a single truth: your life is shaped by the choices you make when no one is watching. The quiet moments, the small decisions, the hidden efforts, these are the bricks that build the future you dream about. And the beautiful part is, you're not doing this alone. Your future self is cheering for you, hoping you rise, hoping you commit, hoping you step into the version of life you've always imagined. Every day gives you two paths: the easy one that keeps you where you are, and the honest one that pulls you toward who you're meant to become. And while the honest path may feel heavier, it's the only one that leads you somewhere new. When you choose discipline over distraction, courage over fear, and action over excuses, you're not just surviving the day, you're shaping the destiny that's waiting for you. So take a breath and remind yourself that you are capable of far more than you've allowed yourself to believe. You were built for growth. You were built for progress. You were built for the kind of transformation that inspires not only you, but everyone who watches you become something greater than your past. The journey won't be perfect, and it won't be fast, but it will be worth every step you take with intention. If today feels heavy, remember this: growth always feels heavy at first. But that weight is not there to break you, it's there to build you. When you push through it, you create momentum, and when momentum begins to work on your side, everything you once called impossible starts becoming your new normal. Keep going long enough, and you'll look back amazed at the person you had the courage to become. And one day, you'll thank yourself for refusing to quit. You'll thank yourself for choosing effort when comfort was easier. You'll thank yourself for believing in a future you couldn't see yet, because the life you want is not a distant fantasy. It's a real chapter waiting to be written by your daily decisions, your daily mindset, your daily commitment. So walk forward with your head high and your heart steady. Your story is still being written, and the pen is in your hands. Make choices today that your future self will be proud to read.